So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kalkidan Mulatu, who is a research management coordinator in the Multifunctional Landscapes and Tropical Forages program at the Alliance. She specializes in climate change mitigation and adaptation with expertise in remote sensing, GIS, and sustainable forestry and agriculture. Since joining the Alliance in 2020, she's worked on global climate commitment tracking, real-time forest monitoring in Ethiopia, and now manages projects on forage-based livestock systems and sustainable food system pathways. And today, Kalkidan will share her experience with the Tricot approach as part of the Ethiopia Grass project.
Perfect. Once again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to share the experience we have under the Ethiopia Grass project, where we employed the Tricot approach, mainly for selection and identification of multi-purpose forage mixtures with farmers. So as said, my name is Kalkidan. I'm with the Alliance of Biodiversity and CIAD based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and I served as a project coordinator for this project. Great, and I should say, this project has been a collaboration between several institutes, the Norwegian Bioeconomy Institute of Bioeconomy, NIBIO, and the Norwegian University of Life Science, from our international partners and leading partners for the project, but also national universities such as the Hawassa University and the Bahar Dar University, and with multiple stakeholders I will be talking about later on. Yes, just to give a brief background about the forages and livestock sector in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is known to have quite a large share of its agricultural system under the mixed farming systems, where around 70% of the total population relies on livestock-related livelihoods and also for their well-being. And we have one of the largest livestock populations in Africa. So considering this large livestock density, it's essential to provide the necessity and the necessary feed resources. Currently, we see that literature show that around 90% of it comes from the traditional grazing systems, which are poorly managed in most cases. And this management system has caused a lot of association for the sector in relation with land degradation. And the intention when it comes to the design of the Ethiopia Grass project is really to kind of reverse this, to bring in forages as a solution, both for livestock feed and also to restore land degradation. So this project ran from 2021 to 2024 for 4 years, as I said, under the partnership of Ethiopian and global research institutes. Why we chose the Tricot approach, right? So because, as I said, within all these different institutes, in this project, we did not only use the Tricot approach, but we also had controlled measurements. So for instance, when we were collaborating with Hawassa University, and the collaboration with Hawassa University and Bahar Dar University involved lab trials and also controlled field trials. But we also wanted to understand how different forage mixtures are recognized and evaluated by farmers, because we assume that introduction of new technologies, in this case, like agricultural technologies, would be essential if they are really captured by farmers and are reflected upon by farmers. So this comparison using the Tricot approach has been essential really to engage farmers. And in Ethiopia, it has been used in different other crops, but for forages, this was the first time that we've employed it. As for site selection and participants, we did the trials into different environments, agroecological zones. So the first one is in the northern, within the Amhara region, where it's characterized still as a mixed farming system, but more with drier the climatic conditions and poorer soil conditions in this farming systems, and in the south, in the Sidama and central Ethiopia regions, where the rainfall distribution and the soil conditions are quite different compared to the north. And so these are distributed between 2 agroecological zones and pretty much 3 regions. When it comes to selection of farmers, we prioritized farmers that have earlier experience with improved forages. And maybe something to emphasize is that we planned much of the early processes with the extension services, the government-based extension services in Ethiopia, which is kind of distributed up to the very local level, up to the Kabale level. So we were making the selections with the DAs, because as you know, so DAs are development agents. As you know, the access to kind of telephone and responding using citizen science enabling tools might be limited in much of this rural setups. So we had to rely on the development agents' support to gather data from farmers. So for instance, so it was essential also to train the development agents on the species that we are distributing, on how these Tricot plots are to be set, and how often we're collecting data, and how they should be collecting data. We had intense sessions with our field agents. And we also identified areas where there are forage production potential, so farmers that are accustomed to cultivating few forage species, but where there's also feed scarcity. And there are also potentials for dairy market, because then that would also motivate farmers to be engaged in this process. And accordingly, we have developed the distribution of an even distribution of these technologies. As you know, with the Tricots, we were able to provide 3 sets of packages, as previously seen here. For one farmer, we would have option A, B, C, and they might have a mixture or standalone species. So these were determined and packaged accordingly with a dedicated barcode for each farmer. When we come to the data collection, so overall we had a reach of around 600 farmers through 2 cohorts. So the first one we started with 360 farmers, and the second one around 300 again. So within the first cohort, we had up to 4 harvests. And as you can see, like in time, there's a reduction of number of observations, and this has to relate to different conditions. One, you know, it's also an experience, right? So we have to make sure that farmers are fully engaged and incentivized throughout the process. So when farmers and land is quite scarce in our setup, so farmers might also tend to convert their land to other uses. But it's also, like in some cases, there has been some security issues, especially in the northern regions. So through time, those numbers were also decreasing, because the development agents were also having a hard time to follow up and report on the different harvest information on different harvests. And the second cohort, we also maximized the number of participants within those areas. The traits assessed could be kind of generalized around these areas, but not exclusively. So farmers were assessing different traits around establishment, the resilience of the different, the standalone or the mixtures in terms of resistance, but also in providing environmental benefits, looking at soil fertility indicators, environmental co-benefits, and also importantly, production and productivity indicators. just to share some key results and how we went about identifying like what affects preference and what stood out important in terms of preference. We had several, apart from the actual harvest documentation, we also did several socioeconomic surveys. But in the different harvest periods, we also asked an open question. So why some species are chosen the best and why some species are chosen the least. And it was an open question. And from that, we were able to extract through text mining like some keywords. And we've seen that in terms of preference, some topics related to yield, biomass, livestock feed, covering of soil, and tolerance to drought, and so were quite important. So those we've identified specific traits that really resonates with this mined topics. So we plotted the performances of, or the preferences of, the different standalone and mixtures, standalone species and mixtures, along with the preferred traits. And just to summarize this, we see that some that did not establish well were least preferred. So like when you look at some establishment related parameters, like for instance, even in coverage, and so they did not, those were the ones that were least preferred. And those that were locally most available, such as Desho, that it's kind of, we've taken it as the most, like we compared all the other performances, taking Desho as a base, because that's the Desho grass is the most established in the systems. We can look at it later on also in our generalization, that we found it to be the most dominant, because it's also something that is more like custom to the system and what farmers are most familiar with. But mixtures did receive the highest reception. So we had mixtures that had 4 different species, and they even informally, even though it's not even in the quantification of the preferences, farmers have seen it as the most important, because they've seen an increase in milk productivity, that they've seen tendency of their livestock. As you can see, the livestock liked it when they were fed with this mixture. So we were able to pick those. So we've seen that there are interests for mixtures as well. So these are in support of our findings from the controlled and lab-based trials. And this findings and approach were often communicated and reflected upon the multi-stakeholder platforms that we had since the establishment of the project. So every year we've had this multi-stakeholder platform operating with members coming in from national research institutes, international research institutes as ours, CG centers, and others, and also NGOs that are operating in these spaces, as well as the private sector and from the academics. So they were assessing the implementations and the next year activities, and giving guidances as well, and partnerships as well when needed. We were also able to really sit with farmers, because this information is coming in from them, right? These are the information that they gave us about their preferences, about the performances of each trait. So we have gone, especially in the Sidama region, to have like really intense discussion with farmers, reflecting on our findings and factors that they might recognize to affect performances and preferences, and also to encourage adoption of extending this well-performing mixtures. So farmers were really reflecting on the legitimacy of the findings. And as for communications, we have captured the journey of farmers and their reflection on the engagement through different means. So really information materials that really focused on farmers, giving their experience and through the process, and another one that really also compiles the knowledge from experts and also from farmers, and also reflecting on the findings from the lab and the controlled trials. We've also developed different materials that are meant to inform policymakers and also private sectors and donors. As a policy brief, we did develop a policy brief and also a policy briefing event where we communicated our major results and recommendations. Yes, it was quite interesting also that this experience and approach that we've tasted on forages in Ethiopia have been adopted to develop a project around forages in Norway as well, and it's being launched, and it's meant to continue for another 3 years, I believe. So overall lesson is that indeed having these reflections from farmers gives insights about factors that we normally do not account for if it has been done under controlled or lab conditions, because farmers do have a first-hand experience and do have a first-hand engagement on this. And also we've seen that adoption has been very natural because their own neighbors sees the impact on how you can produce large quantity of forages in quite small space, and how you can also provide quality feed from such small space. And some of these varieties and species are not are new to Ethiopia, so it promoted natural adoption. We've seen that mixtures have more reception by farmers. They were more inclined towards these mixtures. And we've seen that, of course, they show having presence and many years of experience with farmers have been also like this, its presence and familiarity has also impacted farmers' preferences. But we also know that there are many biophysical and socioeconomic factors that affect the performances of this species and that are yet to be accounted for. We're also interested to see how this mixtures or standalone species would perform under different niches, if they are put on field boundaries, on soil water conservation platforms. As I said, land is really a shortage in many scenarios. So we're also interested to explore like where different niches are for forage adoption. And yeah, we've seen that it's really critical to also address the seed sector, the availability of forage seed, and also a good extension service that can support adoption. Yeah, so this is in short my presentation. There are many people that contributed to this project. So thank you to all from our partners, and some of them are here. So in the Q&A session, I invite colleagues to also share experiences if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kalkidan. That was a really interesting presentation. Very good. And now I'm sure that there are some questions and comments from the participants. So let me just open the floor. Who would like to raise your virtual hand and ask a question? Is that okay, that's a clapping hand. Peter Emrich, go ahead and
Hello.
unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, turn on your camera if you have one.
Hello,
Perfect.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you could clarify the exact list of species that you considered, because some of those names I'm either unfamiliar with, or they're not entirely specific about which species of forage crop you're talking about.
Can you?
So
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these are the lists of species that we introduced. As I said, some are existing in the.
So what's Mombasa, for example?
It's a Mombasa grass is a panican.
Okay.
Yes, and so it's so we have different kind of species that we know can be adopted and can provide feeding services for our environment. So the selection was kind of guided by that.
Yeah. Could you just send or provide a list of the actual just scientific names of these, because it's a little bit unclear to me.
Can you drop your email, please,
Yeah.
in the chat, and then I can send you like also kind of a full report around it?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Good.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Can I just have a little follow-up question, Kalkidan, on that? The species mix, are these new mixtures, or are they mixtures that have already been used by farmers?
Not really. So often farmers do use desho as a it's a single species. So mixtures are not really well introduced in much of the sites. Maybe two in some cases, but these mixtures are a bit new to the sites. So that was like the technology that we said we introduced.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, thanks. I have a question. Abel has raised his hand. Go ahead and unmute, please.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Kalkidan. Nice presentation. I have one question that what was the reason that the farmers selected those species? Did you have animal performance data to support why they chose this particular species? And then what's your plan for sustainability? There has been a lot of efforts that NGOs giving free forage seeds to the farmers, but a few years later, you don't find those species with the farmers. So what's the plan so that the farmers could continue using those forage resources in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, Abel. Thanks, Abel. I think those are critical ones. As to why they chose this species, so we had more or less, so we were taking only more of a qualitative data through like responses through the Tricot approach, because we're not really measuring or doing any biomass measurements or so. It was more of like we had indicators that would assess performance and preference. So for instance, here we gave kind of an open question. So why was it important, any mixture or any standalone species, why was it important? And what was coming out was like I was getting high yield. I was getting more biomass out of it. And as for the livestock trial, we did not do an actual livestock feeding trial, but they were saying, so there was a question that was related to livestock feeding. Did the cows or whichever livestock that the cattle that they were feeding into, were they more receptive to this mixtures or standalone species? And that guided the preference by farmers for the mixtures. And farmers were saying, especially when we were having this in-depth conversations, they were saying that they saw more productivity, more quality, not only in terms of quantity of milk or so, but also in the quality of the product. So they were getting more quality butter out of it. And that really meant that the nutrition that they were getting out of these mixtures were more important to them. As for the sustainability, as we were saying in the last slide, indeed, we would never see the distribution of forage seeds through NGOs as a solution. There has to be a very sustainable value chain around forage seed or the forage market itself. The forage seed providers are quite small in number, and also the species that are registered in Ethiopia are also quite few, especially when it comes to high yielding species. So registry of new, like this well-performing the profiling and registration of this well-performing forage species is essential, and also introducing them to the seed market is essential. But that's really a sector that needs to grow, and that's why in all of our engagements in the multi-actor platforms and also in the policy briefs, we try to reach out to the private sector to show that there's real high need for engagement with the private sector. I hope it addresses your questions.
You have something else to say, Abel?
Yes, thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Kalkidan. I have one more question. Have you checked the economic viability of adopting those forages? Because you're suggesting that it could be profitable. So if a farmer, instead of growing crop, they grow forages, is it economically viable? That's the first follow-up question. The second one is, how much is the involvement of AIR in this project? Because they have the money to apply those technologies with the farmers. They are the one close to the farmers. So how much were the AIR involved in these projects? Thanks.
Thank you, Abel. Yes, so in relation to the economic viability, indeed, one of the things that we did at the last stage of the project was to do socioeconomic assessment. We were trying to account for, so two things. One, we were advocating more about integrating forages as part of the system. So, for instance, in terms of intercropping or using niche spaces such as soil water conservation, or boundaries, field boundaries, to really cultivate and use and grow forages as part of the livestock system. But we also did, we have not completed the study, but we've done a quick study of, how much land it requires to, for instance, grow the most typical crop in Sidama region, which is maize. So how much fertilizer, how much amount of land preparation, how much amount of transportation, or how much the seed costs. We really did go through kind of synthesizing how much that would cost to produce a crop, and how much producing forages would cost in terms of availability of seed, especially considering all these different mixtures, its impact on the soil. We tried to quantify that. We did not reach a specific conclusion at the end, because we're not advocating for replacing the system, but we wanted to promote for integrating forages as part of the system. So our intention was at the end more about introducing them in niche environments where it does not really kind of convert the production system from crop to forage production, but to integrate it as part of it. But yeah, we had a study that really looked into this, but did not reach a complete conclusion. As for the involvement of the Agricultural Research Institute, we're working with Arari, the Amhara Agricultural Research Institute. They're also part of the multi-actor platform, because we operate in the Amhara region, and also the SARI, the Sidama, it was the Southern Agricultural Research Institute, now the Sidama Research Institute. So they have been part of the knowledge creation and also the part of that, the dissemination process as well. So yeah, it has good ownership in terms of engaging government in that space. And one of the interests that we have is also to really do the screening of some of the well-performing species with them, and even go up to really registering it up into the national system as well. Thanks.
Thank you. That sounds like a nice next phase for the project. Okay, are there any other further questions? I don't see any hands, but it's not too late. You want to ask a question or make a comment? All right. A few people have said in the chat, Kalkidan, that they would like to see the report of the species. So we'll make sure and take down those addresses that so you have them.
Yes.
And I also put Kalkidan's email address into the chat if anybody would like to contact her for more information. Don't hesitate. Congratulations to the team, says Kawe. Great. Okay, so there are lots of congratulations coming in, and thanks very much to you, Kalkidan, for such a nice presentation. Really interesting, and we look forward to hearing more about the Ethiopia Grass project in the future. So I'll just close this meeting quickly. If I could ask you to unshare your screen, Kalkidan, then I can,
Thank you, everyone.
yeah, I can share mine just to remind everybody about our 1,000 Farms online resources, our website, social media, and our community page. And lastly, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. And yes, have a nice rest of your day and rest of your week. Thank you very much.